The use of mechanical instruments of music to accompany the worship of God by His church is not authorized by His Word. My partner and I have shown of our constructive speeches that this is in fact the case. The negative team have given no suitable arguments to disprove the resolution. Please once again notice that it is not our job as affirmative to prove that instruments are commanded by the Bible. Our opponents must prove they are authorized, which they have not been able to do since there is no passage condoning instrumental music in the pattern laid for the church. The New Testament. Now let me address a few of the arguments brought up by my opponents. We did not get the definition for psalmos from a website or the internet. We got it from Thayer's Bible Dictionary and from the translations of psalmos that render the word singing 7 times in the New Testament. Our opponents have also incorrectly used the book of Revelations to authorize instrumental worship. Let's take a closer look at these passages. Revelations 5, verse 8. And when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. The verse does not authorize instrumental music for our worship today. Instruments are mentioned in the same sentence as the 4 living creatures and bowls of incense, objects that are foreign to our worship. These are meant to be symbolic. The incense is even described as symbolizing the prayers of the saints. So similarly, it would seem possible that the harp is an object symbolizing the vocal singing of the saints. The passage is not permitting instrumental worship, just as it is not permitting burning incense in worship. Revelation 14, verse 2. And I heard a voice from heaven, like the roar of many waters, and the sound of the loud thunder. The voice I heard was like the sound of a harpist playing on his harps. Our opponents are misusing this verse. Notice that no use of the actual instruments are being used there, but rather the voice John heard sounded like harps. This does not set an example for our worship today. John was simply comparing something he heard in heaven to something he could understand. My opponents have given Old Testament examples to justify the use of instruments in our worship. The fact is, however, as we pointed out in our constructive speeches, God's relationship with His people has changed since the Old Testament. Hebrews chapter 8, verse 13, and Galatians 3, 24 through 26 are just a few verses that explain that we are no longer bound by the law. We see the same idea from Romans chapter 7, verse 10.
We have clearly seen throughout this debate that Scripture only authorizes singing for musical worship in the church today. Let's more closely examine the claims that my opponents have made to dispute this claim. Our opponents admitted that the resolution is true. Did you catch it? They admitted that the New Testament doesn't say whether we can or cannot use instruments. In saying this, they affirm clearly that the New Testament does not say we can use instruments. That's all we needed to hear. Thank you for agreeing with the resolution's claim that there is no authority to be found in the New Testament for instrumental worship. Now I'm sure our opponents will want to focus on the fact that the New Testament does not condemn the use of instruments, but remember, that has nothing to do with the resolution we're defending. To uphold the resolution, we simply must maintain that the New Testament does not authorize instrumental worship, not that it condemns it. To agree that there is silence is to affirm the resolution. Silence means there is no words of authorization or origination. Thus, by agreeing that there is silence, our opponents have agreed with our resolution. Also, our opponents have given different definitions of the word church to disprove the resolution. However, the resolution clearly emphasizes God's church. What is God's church? Well, according to the Bible, it is what Jesus died for and purchased with His blood, making it God's church, according to Ephesians 5:25. Our opponents are misusing the wording of the resolution because they have no other valid arguments that authorize instrumental worship for our use today. Also, our opponents argue that those who have musical talents should not be restrained from using those talents for God. We agree, generally speaking, but there obviously has to be some reasoning involved here. If I was a talented dancer, can I use that talent for the Lord? Must dancing become a part of worship so that I can use my talent in worship to God? Do our opponents really think that every talent must be allowed to find its fulfillment in the worship assembly? Clearly, there's an issue here, and our opponents need to rethink their argument. In conclusion, the negative team has given no biblical examples authorizing, commanding, or originating the idea of instrumental worship for the church. They have resorted to out-of-date Old Testament examples that no longer apply to our worship procedure. Result: the use of mechanical instruments of music to accompany the worship of God by His church is not authorized by His word. Thank you.